What if I told you the most dangerous moment in any manipulative relationship is not the fight, not the confrontation, not even the breakup, but the exact moment an empath goes quiet? Stay with me, because this silence is not weakness. It is the sound of power returning home. For years, empaths are misunderstood. They are called soft, emotional, overly sensitive. People assume they exist to absorb pain, to forgive endlessly, to bend so others can remain comfortable. They are praised for their kindness while being slowly drained by those who know exactly how to exploit it. And because empaths feel deeply, they are taught to believe that endurance is strength and self-sacrifice is love. Carl Jung saw something far more profound. He believed that within every wounded soul lies dormant power, waiting patiently for the moment it is needed most. Empaths spend years suppressing that power. They silence their intuition. They explain away red flags. They apologize for boundaries they were never wrong to have. They dim their light so no one feels threatened by their presence. But Jung discovered that what is suppressed does not disappear. It accumulates. Every time an empath swallows the truth, that energy is stored. Every time they forgive betrayal without accountability, the psyche records it. Every time they choose peace over self-respect, something inside them tightens and waits. This is not weakness. This is compression. And compression creates force. There comes a moment, quiet, unannounced, irreversible, when the empath wakes up, not in anger, not in revenge, but in clarity. The nervous system stops apologizing, the heart stops negotiating, the soul stops asking for permission to exist fully. This is the moment manipulators never anticipate, because it doesn't look dramatic. There are no arguments, no explanations, no emotional displays. There is only a shift. Suddenly, the empath is no longer reacting. They are observing. They are no longer seeking understanding. They are recognizing patterns. They are no longer trying to be chosen. They are choosing themselves. Carl Jung would call this the beginning of individuation. The moment a person stops living from their wounds and starts living from their truth. And once this moment arrives, there is no going back. The empath who awakens does not become cruel. They become unavailable to disrespect. They do not harden their heart. They sharpen their awareness. The silence you see is not confusion. It is the calm of someone who has finally remembered who they are. This is the moment the power dynamic collapses. This is when those who thrived on control begin to feel something unfamiliar, irrelevance, and they sense it instantly. Because the empath who has awakened is no longer feeding the illusion. They have stepped out of the role entirely. When the awakening begins, it doesn't arrive as confidence or confrontation. It arrives as honesty. Carl Jung called this process the integration of the shadow, the moment when everything the empath has buried begins to return. The anger they were taught to suppress, the intuition they were told was too much, the self-respect they sacrificed to keep the peace. None of it was lost. It was waiting. For years, the empath survived by adapting. They learned to read moods, anticipate reactions, and adjust themselves to avoid conflict. They confused empathy with obligation and compassion with self-erasure. But Jung understood that the psyche cannot be divided forever. What is denied eventually demands to be seen. And when it does, the shift is unmistakable. The empath stops over-explaining, stops justifying their feelings, stops carrying guilt for other people's discomfort. They no longer apologize for having limits. The urge to be liked dissolves, replaced by the need to be real. This is not rebellion. It is alignment. Jung described this moment as psychological rebirth. The empath does not become louder. They become clearer. They no longer ask, "What did I do wrong?" They ask, "Why did I accept this?" And that single question changes everything. This is where self-betrayal ends. The body no longer tolerates what the soul has outgrown. Boundaries stop feeling cruel and start feeling natural. The empath recognizes that love without self-respect is not love at all, it is survival. The shadow, once feared, becomes a source of strength. The anger becomes discernment. The sensitivity becomes perception. The pain becomes knowledge. What once leaked out as exhaustion now stands upright as truth. Jung believed that when the shadow is integrated, a person becomes whole, no longer split between who they are and who they pretend to be. For the empath, this wholeness is revolutionary. They are no longer fragmented by guilt or controlled by hope that others will change. They change, and the world feels it, because a person who has reclaimed their inner authority no longer negotiates their worth. They stand in it. This is the moment manipulators begin to panic, because the empath's greatest gift has shifted direction. Carl Jung understood that empaths possess an extraordinary form of perception. They don't just sense emotions, they recognize patterns, tone, timing, intention, inconsistency. What once registered as discomfort now reveals itself as strategy. Before the awakening, the empath used this awareness to excuse behavior, to give endless benefit of the doubt, to empathize with those who caused harm. But now that same perception becomes protection. They see manipulation before it fully forms. They recognize gaslighting in a single sentence. They feel misalignment instantly, and they no longer ignore it. The awakened empath does not argue or expose. They disengage. Jung believed true power is not force, but certainty. The empath doesn't need to explain why they are stepping back. They simply do. Boundaries are no longer emotional pleas. They are decisions. This is what Jung called psychological sovereignty, ownership of one's inner world. The empath no longer absorbs chaos. They reflect truth. And truth is devastating to deception. Without confrontation, without drama, the dynamic collapses. Those who relied on control feel it immediately. The attention is gone. The emotional access is closed. The empath who once reacted now responds, or doesn't respond at all. And in that silence, manipulation has nowhere to land. The empath hasn't become cold. They've become unavailable to dishonesty, and that is something no manipulator can survive. This is the final transformation, the one that makes the awakened empath unstoppable. Carl Jung believed the highest stage of psychological development is self-completion, the moment a person no longer needs others to validate or complete them. The empath reaches this not by hardening their heart, but by integrating their wounds into wisdom. They have been betrayed, misunderstood, and discarded. But instead of becoming bitter, they became precise. Instead of closing off, they became selective. Love is no longer a reflex, it is a choice. Access is no longer automatic, it is earned. The empath now operates from conscious boundaries. Not walls built from fear, but standards built from self-respect. They give exactly what the situation deserves. Nothing more, nothing less. Jung called this appropriate response. Engagement guided by clarity rather than guilt. They no longer rescue people who refuse to save themselves. They no longer chase connection where there is no reciprocity. They no longer pour light into places that cannot hold it. Relationships are entered consciously, not compulsively. This is why manipulators cannot return. There is nothing left to exploit. The empath is whole, grounded, present. They stand in quiet certainty, not aggression, not revenge, but truth. Jung believed that when someone integrates their shadow and emerges whole, they become a force of nature, not destructive but immovable. The awakened empath embodies this, dangerous not because they attack, but because they cannot be controlled, manipulated, or broken again. This is true power.